Welcome to the channel. Welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before getting into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's jump straight into it. So you've probably already seen by now, we had a bit of a kick between the legs yesterday with the Carlos Baleba deal being officially off. We're not pursuing that deal. There was a moment I was getting really giddy about it, and I'm happy to be disappointed because I did say at the time that, it's unlikely this deal, but I'm still going to get excited and giddy about it regardless of what happens. So we're going to run through there, but it is what it is. I think we've tried and not been successful, and we'll move on hopefully, but we'll go through all the news regarding that. So for those who haven't seen it, Manchester United not planning to proceed with Carlos Baleba move this summer. Indirect and direct contact between clubs, but Brighton clear, not for sale, and level of fee to consider deal too high. 21-year-old midfielder keen on Man United, but not unhappy at Brighton. That came from David Ornstein. So in the piece itself, he said that Brighton made clear they do not intend to sell Baleba this summer and plan to retain him for at least another season. The level of money they have indicated it would take to consider a deal around the £115 million Chelsea spent on Moises Caicedo is beyond what United are willing to pay in the current market. It is anticipated, therefore, a deal now will not materialise. Moving to Old Trafford appeals to Baleba, so personal terms would have been presented no problem, and the Cameroonian international is prepared to keep pushing, even if it means waiting until the future. So David Ornstein confirming we're not going in for Baleba. The expense or the deal, and we'll go through the rest of the news in a bit as well. Not possible for us this stage of the transfer window. Brighton don't want to sell, but interestingly saying that moving to United does appeal to Carlos Baleba. He's prepared to keep pushing, even if it means waiting until the future. So don't think he's going to keep pushing, like Alexander Isak is not playing. He's on strike effectively at Newcastle, trying to force his way to Liverpool. We're not going to get that from Carlos Baleba. So it is what it is. Whether it's one we'll pursue again in the future, who knows? Whether we'll do maybe we'll try and line up a deal for next summer early. Again, who knows? We'll have to wait and see when the dust settles and everything's settled down, what we do and what beholds the future for us in Carlos Baleba. But Fabrizio Romano said that United this morning made direct club-to-club contact with Brighton for Carlos Baleba. Man United received a very clear answer from Brighton, not for sale. Manchester United tried to understand if there was a number to reach in order to try to negotiate with Brighton, but the answer from Brighton was no number. Baleba remains in talks at Manchester United. I'm sure his name will return to the conversation for Manchester United meetings when it's time to find the midfielder. So Romano again effectively saying that, look, they wouldn't give us a number to deal with. They were just like, look, he's not for sale, not at any price at the moment, or we would have had to have done a blind bid, which I don't think you can do. I think that's ridiculous to start to go into a negotiation like that this late in the transfer window regarding that situation. But and then Simon Stone today has come out saying that Manchester United have called off their pursuit of midfielder Carlos Baleba as things stand, with Brighton remaining resolute in their stance. The player is not leaving the club. So give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Obviously, it is a bit of a blow, because Baleba is an outstanding talent, and I think one that would have really transformed the team and transformed the midfield. But the reality is, it was always going to be a long shot, especially this late in the window. Brighton are a nightmare to try to deal with. They don't have to sell, and I don't think us making a blind bid would have been helpful either, because if you go in without knowing what the price is, you either massively overpay, and then that... so you could offer, say that in their heads they're like, well, we'll take 100 million, and then we offer 100 million. They're bound to say no on the first bid, so then you end up almost doubly overpaying, and then that way you're going to get rejected anyway. But then all you've done is show other clubs as well how much money you're willing to throw around. So it has a knock-on effect on the rest of the transfers we might want to get done between now and the end of the transfer window, which is just silly at this stage as well. So I don't blame the club for walking away. We tried, it didn't work out. But for me, it shows two things. So one, we clearly have funds available for the rest of the window. And two, we definitely want a midfielder, and we know the type of profile of midfielder that we're looking for, because it's been widely reported Ruben Amorim wants energy, legs, athleticism, something in the midfield, which is the quality that we are missing, I think. Out of all the profile of players that we've got, we don't really have that athlete in midfield that Ruben Amorim really, really wants. So the question then becomes, what do we do next? Do we wait until next summer, and work on the Baleba deal throughout the season? But that means sticking with the current midfield we've got now, which I agree, and you'll all share that in the comments. I think it's widely, I think the majority of people or United fans do actually are really, really worried about the midfield. Do we get a stopgap on loan? But who knows? Or do we just move on to another midfielder entirely and walk away from the Baleba deal for good? So it's going to be really interesting to see how they pivot, what they do. So the next few days, obviously, there's not much going on over the weekend. Football's back, baby. Game tomorrow, and then I suppose throughout the week we're going to start hearing a little bit more in terms of like transfers and updates, who we pivot to and stuff. But give us your thoughts and feelings on the situation in the comments. As I mentioned, a little bit of a blow, but it was always an unrealistic deal anyway. And I'm happy to be disappointed by it because I want to get back to being giddy around transfers. And I think United tried, but ultimately hit brick wall in Brighton because they don't want to sell. They don't have to sell, and wouldn't have given us a price that they would have sold at anyway. So what are you meant to do? You can't just keep bidding blind because that's a stupid thing to do this stage in the transfer window, because even if it gets rejected, as I mentioned, you've then just shown your hands to every other team. So if you go in for, like Morten Hjulmand, we're linked with him, we're going to go for his situation next. What do you think Sporting will do? They know we've got £100 million cash in the bank for a midfielder. They're gonna hold firm on an inflated price for him. So I do think it's one of these. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Now, that leads me on nicely into other targets. So what do we do, or where do we go next? So Indy Kalia, who I'm not on the bandwagon with, but is now being reposted by aggregator accounts because obviously he was David Ornstein did give him a shout out for the Baleba news, although everything that he said since hasn't really materialised. But Manchester United will make firm inquiries for Crystal Palace's Adam Morton Hjulmand of Sporting, and Edison of Atalanta also on the short list. And I think that they're the three names. We've been linked with those players anyway for a while, so it wouldn't be hard to necessarily draw up the names of midfielders. I mentioned in yesterday's video, Morten Hjulmand was linked with us. I've seen that doing the rounds now, but they're all referencing back to the story from The Sun, because my brother-in-law rang earlier and was like, yeah, what's this Morten Hjulmand story? And I said it came from The Sun, and even he was like, okay. Because I'd want to see a bit more credibility regarding Morten Hjulmand. However, Simon Stone has come out with the following, saying that Manchester United have been linked with Sporting skipper Morten Hjulmand, someone Amorim knows very well from their time together in Portugal, someone I have spoken to with an understanding of Hjulmand's situation, believes the 26-year-old Denmark midfielder will move this summer. United do need to start selling players, but I am guessing that if they exhaust their inquiries for Baleba, their sights may turn to Lisbon. Now, Simon Stone is briefed by the club. He's a well-connected journalist when it comes specifically to United news, works for the BBC, suggesting that he's been told by somebody that maybe Morten Hjulmand would be someone we could pivot to if we didn't get the Baleba deal done. Obviously, we now know we're not getting the Baleba deal done, and he's literally just come out in the last half hour of me when I'm recording this video, saying that Manchester United are now assessing their midfield situation with Sporting captain Morten Hjulmand, a player Amorim knows very well, likely to be available, but we're not like linked. I think it's just a case of Hjulmand might be another midfielder that we would pivot to, and he's potentially going to be leaving Sporting. Obviously has that prior relationship with Ruben Amorim, is a player though that we have scouted before, even before Amorim came in. We've been linked with him for a couple of years now. Could that be someone we pivot to? I think it's a lot of money though. I've been hearing like £50 million, £60 million as well for Hjulmand. I have question marks around his adaptability to the Premier League as well, but you tell me in the comments. You know way more than I do regarding that. So give us your thoughts. Morten Hjulmand, should we pivot towards him now that Baleba's not coming? Give us your shouts on that in the comments. Now, another player that's actually probably a more similar profile to Carlos Baleba is Agoumé. So Seville's Lucien Agoumé is attracting attention from Manchester United. Now, that came from a news outlet close to Sevilla. I feel this is a little bit convenient around the timing that we've just been knocked back from Baleba, and then news outlets start linking us with midfielders. I think we're going to get a few of this in the next few days as well. However, not a bad shout. Really, really interesting profile of player. 23 years old, very good defensively as well. Good progressive, good take-ons. We know we want someone that can progress carry the ball through the midfield. So really good take-ons, good progressive passes as well. Very good defensive stats in terms of tackles, interceptions. He is a really, really good player. Really interesting profile of player, actually. He's one that we've not really been linked with, but one that I would like to see us linked with. And obviously now we have, although I would question where the credibility of the source and the timing of the source seems a little bit suspect to me, but wouldn't be a bad shout in my opinion. In fact, statistically, you could argue to say a little bit better than Carlos Baleba. He's a couple of years older, though, and you've got to bear in mind that this is in the Spanish league. Carlos Baleba's been doing this in the Premier League, and we know the Premier League is a completely different animal compared to other leagues across the world in terms of physicality, and you've got to bear in mind different play styles and stuff like that as well. But, Agoumé's in the pink, more key passes, more progressive passes, wins more duels. Possession one is around the same, slightly less of a ball carrier, although not, marginally more forward passes percentage as well. Like statistically, if you were just going off of the eye test and looking at the data, you'd be thinking there's a shout for Agoumé being a little bit better than Baleba, but Baleba's been doing it in the Premier League, and I do think we want a little bit more Premier League proof, and that seems to be the model we're going down. I know we've got Sesko, but I think Sesko was an opportunity, and we had the connection there with Christopher Vival. Andy is a player that we've been scouting for years as well, but the main characteristics or the main profiles we're going for is Premier League proven. So, but that would be an interesting option. Valued at around £25 million. I've heard some rumours as well, so it would be a really cheap alternative. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Personally, I would want to wait to see a little bit more credibility rather than where that source has come from, because one, it's not the most credible outlet, and then secondly, feels a bit convenient to me that all of a sudden we get knocked back from Carlos Baleba, and then all of a sudden we start getting linked with other midfielders with similar profiles as well. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below, as I am sure that you will. Now, another thing we could potentially do, though, is pivot to another area of the pitch. Can we go out and get a goalkeeper and a centre-half or something of that nature as well? Well, according to Dean Jones via Gimme Sport, he was saying that recruitment chiefs at Old Trafford drew up a plan before the end of the 24-25 season about the business they wanted to do, and it earmarked 6 signings, including 3 attackers, a midfielder, a goalkeeper, and a centre-back in the next 12 months. While INEOS have been able to get the 3 attackers over the line, they now feel that a move for a new centre-back is unlikely to be addressed until January at the earliest. So Dean Jones suggesting that there's 6 positions that we wanted to strengthen. So the three attackers, which we've got done, midfielder, goalkeeper, and a centre half as well. So obviously we know we're not going in for Carlos Baleba. But Dean Jones saying we're not going for a centre half. So does that mean that we're still, prioritising midfielder and goalkeeper? I hope so, because it is massively concerning that we're starting the season tomorrow. And we'll have this conversation after the game tomorrow, and I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. Like, when our midfield gets ran through by Arsenal, we're all going to be sat here doing exactly the same thing, thinking, "Oh my God, can we please go and get a midfielder?" So, like I said, it's frustrating that obviously we've not got Baleba, but the positive for me is that at least we know the profile of player that we want, and we have tried. We weren't successful, which is annoying, but we do. That midfield is massively concerning for me. And then, the goalkeeper I know is massively concerning for everybody as well. And more so, some of you actually would be prioritising the goalkeeper position ahead of the midfield as well. But we'll just have to wait and see. But give us some thoughts and feelings in the comments, as I am sure that you will. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Don't forget, smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.